All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Clown Underground here. Um, what I want to talk about this morning is something that is really important that has been really sad in a lot of ways when I'm dealing with the fact that I have a friend who ended up losing losing one of her friends that I really didn't really get a chance to really know. I mean, I knew a little bit about him, and I didn't really get a chance to really talk to him a lot as far as actually sitting down and really you know talking to him on a regular basis to get to know him a little bit more than just being casual acquaintances or whatever you want to call it. So let's get right to the chase, I guess. Uh, he was a kid. He was like 18 years old. Back in 2017, summer 2017, in August of 2017. Um, and I didn't know that he was 18. I thought he was like 15 at the time because he looked kind of like he'd be still in high school. And uh, one of my friends, was really tragically devastated by what happened to him, and that what he did was, as a result of him being severely depressed a lot, and he just didn't really um, be able to really talk to people a lot about it and try to really get some help to understand like why, I guess, whatever his issues were, I don't know. um, but what he did was he ended up hanging himself. um, I'm not sure what he used to hang himself with, but the end result is he hung himself. And he died at 18 years old because he was just really, I guess, didn't want anybody to know how depressed he was. And he didn't really want to let people know that he was going to, hang himself. So what he did is he just went right to the chase and just hung himself. Um, and I was surprised. I was really surprised about it. It took me a little while to really get over the fact that somebody that young, would kill themselves like that, by hanging themselves. But it happens like to even younger people than that, and it also happens to a lot of 25, 35, 45-year-old people, just to various ages. They say suicide, it doesn't really happen that often in elderly people, but it can happen. But your biggest portion of people in between the ages is like 12 and like 30 are more likely to, kill themselves. They're at higher risk of killing themselves if they're severely depressed. Um, and that brings us to this point of this video. I want to talk about the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. I've got this t-shirt. I don't know if you guys can really see it very much. It's green and gray. It's a really comfortable shirt to say. Comfort comfortable shirt to wear. I have a hard time talking this morning. I've just finished like an 8-hour job. And it says National Suicide Prevention, and it has that number on it. But I want to talk about what they can and can't do, the plus side to it and the bad side of the hotline. For example, you're severely depressed, you're in crisis, and you call into the hotline. The plus side of it is that it's a 24-hour hotline. When you call, it'll take about a minute for them to pick up sometimes, but there's somebody within that 30 seconds to a minute. When you call in, they'll ask you if you want to talk. It says, "Are you calling for the Veterans Crisis Line or the national or the your lead reach the National Suicide Hotline?" If you're a veteran, please press 1, I think. And what that does is it routes you to the Veterans Crisis Line, which is in Canandaigua, New York. And there at the Veterans Crisis Line, the people that work there a lot of them are former professionals who've, are semi-retired in various levels of professions and that are centered towards mental health. So, a lot of them are former military personnel. A lot of them are former military, have served in the military. Some of them that are Marines. Some of them are U.S. Army. And it really helps to have somebody that has served in the military in order to understand somebody who's already currently serving in the military or who has just already left the military because they've just finished their time of service, or they're getting ready to go to the military as far as being, deployed. Maybe they've already been through their training, their boot camp. They've did their, their training, and they're getting ready to be deployed to go to war. They may have been in the National Guard for quite some time, but have not been deployed yet. And that sort of thing. They may be scared. They may be frightened. They, really anxious about like what's going to happen when they get deployed, and so maybe that's why they're in crisis. And that's a legitimate reason to call in, because they can walk you through a lot of things. On the other side, the National Suicide Hotline is there's a lot of crisis centers in the United States that are linked to the National Suicide Hotline. Now, here's some of the old things that they used to do in crisis hotlines. Is they used to be manned by volunteers, a lot of volunteers, and very few people who were actually getting paid to work those lines that were like, former counselors, former nurses, people in the mental health field that have semi-retired, let's say, for example, that really know their stuff when it comes to crises and dealing with mental health issues, and especially depression. But the volunteers, the ones that are trained volunteers, they have to go through training as a volunteer. But what they've done is they've limited the amount of volunteers to actually now man the phones to these crisis centers. They want people now to be trained as crisis counselors, and they go through a series of training, and a lot of these places are paying these people to do that. They're paying these people to, learn about veterans issues. They're learn about, depression and suicide prevention, learn the signs of what's leading up to what could be a suicide, So it's switched from really being a big bulk of like volunteers to now more of like people are really getting paid to to work the phones. A lot of people that are working the phones, like I said, are former um, and semi-retired, nurses, counselors, mental health counselors, drug addiction counselors, mental health managers, mental health management team leaders, you name it. They've worked in human resources. They've worked in, uh, the police department. Some of them are former police officers that have got out of the police force, and they just really didn't want to be in law enforcement anymore. Maybe they're semi-retired and such, and they want to really get out there and sit behind a desk and really relax and kind of like talk to people, just to be you know have a conversation about like what's really going on today. So here's the other part of it. What they can't do for you is they can't be used as a a long-term therapy type thing, because when you call in, you may not be able to talk to them for maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You may only, like I said, you may only get to talk to them for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because they have other calls that they have to pick up on. You're not going to be able to sit there like as if you're in a therapist office and talk to them for 30 minutes to an hour. Now, there are certain situations where they will be on the phone with you for 30 minutes to an hour, and that is really, first off, the reason why they will take time out to be on the phone with you for an hour is, number one, you've already threatened several times that you're going to kill yourself. Number two, they're doing all they can to try to talk you out of killing yourself. And number three, there's somebody also during that hour that is sitting in quietly right beside the counselor, taking notes and working beside them to work on a rescue, such as like they may have only your cell phone number, that when you call in, they may have only the landline number, or they may have the payphone number, and they're locating where the payphone is that you're calling in on, so that they can try to get the sheriff's department, state police, any kind of law enforcement. Doesn't matter what kind of law enforcement arrives, at least they can get somebody there to come in basically and detain you, get you to locate where you're at, so that they can get an officer there to detain you, so then they can therefore go ahead and take to the next step and do their further investigation and find out what is going on with like why you want to kill yourself, and what's really what they can do to try to help stop that. And sometimes they'll be on the phone with you for 30 minutes to locate where your whereabouts are, and also to locate where the local police department is, based off the cell phone number that that comes in on their caller ID. That also, if any little bit of information that they can get, like your name, and sometimes they can find out what state you live in, so they can narrow things down to where they can get the police on the other end to let the police know, hey, so and so is over at this gas station on this payphone here. We found it at some Quickie Mart or someplace. He's on the phone over here, and we need you to get officers on the scene. Get down there. It's really the extreme case of why they would keep you on the phone for 30 minutes to an hour. If you're calling in and you're, depressed and you don't have no thoughts of wanting to kill yourself, you're just having a bad day, you're tired all the time, you have no motivation and stuff, yeah, they'll talk to you for about 10 minutes maybe. And then they'll give you a few tips and tricks of what you need to do to try to get yourself motivated and get yourself up and out of the predicament that you're in. So they're not used for continuous therapy. What they are good for is, like I said, immediate crisis intervention. That's what they're really good for. They're like, a booster to help boost you until you can get to your psychiatrist appointment, until you can get to your therapist appointment. They're really, to kind of help talk you down and get you settled down and get you back to tranquility, so that way you can move along through your week until you can get to your counseling appointment. They're not meant as something to just continue to keep calling them on a regular basis. Now, there are people who do that, but that's not what it's really designed for. The other plus side of it is, the positive side to the suicide hotline is, in any crisis hotline, most of these people are not getting paid a super amount of money to work these lines. A lot of these people are doing it because they really love their job and they're passionate about helping people. And I've talked to a lot of them before that have said, that they are passionate about what they do. That's why they work the phones as much as they can. The other thing that is I can think of is the positive thing of the crisis line is, like I said, there's a lot of nice people that are working the phones, and they're compassionate, very compassionate. It takes a good person to really listen, and there's a lot of them that are listening all the time. When you call in, they're really trying to understand what's really going on, because you can't really help somebody until you understand the full story of what's going on with them. Sometimes when people call in, they just want somebody to talk to, and that's it. Sometimes they call in because they want information about services, and like in one of the Veterans Crisis documentaries that was made a few years ago about the Veterans Crisis Line, and also it pertains to the National Suicide Hotline as well, is that some people call in just to tell the counselor that they're going to die. And the reason why that they may be telling the counselor that they're going to die is because, first off, they don't want to have people 2 months later discover their rotten, decomposed body, and they don't want to put their family through such a huge horror of them walking into their house or their apartment, or other people that might walk into their house or the apartment to discover what's going on or what's wrong, because they haven't contacted anybody for 2 months. So they don't want to put their family and anybody else in that kind of horror. So they're telling the counselor that that this is it. There's no help for them, and that they're letting them know that they're going to die. And the counselor may be like, like I said, they're going to start rallying the resources to try to get the sheriff's department and the police department, state police, whoever that they can get, gathered up to get down there to hopefully maybe prevent them from killing themselves. And, and it also, like I said, they may kill themselves anyway before the police get there. And, maybe their wish is that they, don't want other people to discover their decomposed body 2 months later or a month later, and that if they kill themselves right then and there, they won't be, stink like, what most people would think, or what most people know. Let's put it that way. So, some of them call in, like I said. Let me see if there's something else I could think of. The reason why that they might call in. It's various levels of distress. Maybe they're suffering from nightmares because they've had something really bad happen to them in the past, and that may not be anything that has to do with any veterans type issues. They may not be a veteran when they call in, and it may be something traumatic that's happened to them when they were a little kid, and they just can't sleep. They're hearing voices. That they feel like the devil is talking to them in the middle of the night, and that sort of thing. So, the negatives to it is, what the negative side to it is, can't really think a lot of negative things. I just really can't think of too much negative things. Like, all I can say is what it's used for, and what it can help you with, and what it's not used for, what it's not really that great for. Like I said, is like long-term therapy, and they're not going to be able to talk to you for like very long periods of time unless you're in extreme crisis. You've already expressed several times in a few short comments. This is it. You're gonna do it, and there's nothing else that anybody can do to help you. So, I try to wrap this video up. All I have to say is, it's a good thing that they started this thing with the hotline years ago, and I think that there's some dramatic improvements that can be made to it. And one fact I know for sure is, they've told me many times, is that the hotline often is dramatically overloaded and understaffed. Like, when I say that, is you have a lot of calls calling in, but you don't have enough staff to really take all those calls. Like, say if you have 150 people working at the Veterans Crisis Line, and you have, say, 3,000 to 4,000 people calling in all at once from all around the nation, at that very moment, calling in. So, like, let's say you're on the phone, you're one of the crisis counselors, and there's 150 other crisis counselors all around you, and they're on the line too, and they're talking to somebody. And then all of a sudden you got 3,000 calls come in at that very second. Well, what happens is, you can't take, even if you worked all day long for nearly 16 hours, there's no way that everybody on the team will be able to take all those calls and be able to take those calls effectively and really talk to them. So my point of the video is, there are good things about it, and there's a lot of bad things that it's not used for. There's like saying things it's not used for, not good for. Uh, just remember that this is one major entity, one major place, one major network. Let's put it this way: network of crisis hotlines. The reality is to it, there are a lot of crisis hotlines. When they say National Suicide Hotline, that is just one major hotline that's linked to many crisis centers all around the nation. But that's not the only hotline that you can call. There's a lot of hotlines out there. There's a lot of hotlines that are manned by exclusively volunteers, and that's it. But like I said, the National Suicide Hotline, they've geared things more towards hiring people to work the lines. So that's what I have to say. It's like if you can't get a hold of somebody, you are actually in suicidal crisis, and you can't get a hold of somebody at the National Suicide Hotline, because nobody picks up because the lines are fully loaded with callers calling in at the same time, nobody picking up. You can always, as they say, you can always call the police. They tell you to call the police. It's kind of funny. They tell you to go call the police. Well, yeah, you can call the police and tell them that you're going to kill yourself. And yeah, they will come. They will come pick you up, take you to the hospital. You can always call 911. But there's also, you can always call the hospital and your local hospital and talk to somebody, crisis intervention response person at the hospital, whether that might be a doctor, somebody working in behavioral health, a nurse, whatever you got to do if you feel like you're going to kill yourself because maybe the voices are telling you to do it, or you've been, just nobody, you don't feel like nobody cares about you anymore and that you want to do better, but you also at the same time don't really feel like there's anybody out there to help you, this sort of things like that. So what I'm saying is, I just wanted to, just really talk about the hotline, talk about the shirt. It's a nice shirt to wear. It kind of startles people because not a whole lot of people go around, advertising the, the National Suicide Hotline, and wear the shirt, there's just not a whole lot of people that really think it's glamorous, or I don't know. I just think it's just a comfortable shirt. To me, it's like a work shirt, and that's just what I wear it to work. I wear it to every place else I go to, and really good stuff. So got to cut it short. My battery is about dead, and guys, have a good one. Clown Underground signing off.